The new year is coming at us fast, and some people might be toying with the idea of setting up some goals. But this exercise can get out of hand very quickly. Sure, I want to look like Katrin David's daughter, put up a video every day like Dr. Grande, publish a book this year and next year and the next year, all while being a supportive wife, a great mother, and an expert red lipstick applier. But I just can't do it all. At least not while also trying to take care of adult braces. So from my own experience as a behavioral scientist and as a clinical psychologist, I can safely say that choosing a select group of goals to focus on for the upcoming year is the best way to go. Okay, the first way to select goals is to use a needs-based strategy. So perhaps you need to finish a certification for work. You need to save a certain amount of money to repair your fence. You need to focus on managing your weight to deal with your type 2 diabetes. So you or someone else have identified that you need a change. When using this needs-based approach, I like to use index cards for this process because we're going to be sorting things and moving things around, so you can actually start moving and manipulating some of these goals as we're walking through the process. What we're going to do is take your specific goals that you've identified, and we're going to rank them in terms of how catastrophic or how urgent of a need it is. Fortunately, we don't need to come up with a framework of human needs. We have a psychologist that has done that for us. We can use Maslow's hierarchy of needs to rank order our goals in terms of their fulfillment of a specific human need. His hierarchy rates human needs from basic survival all the way through meeting your full potential. As a side note here, part of being self-actualized is personal improvement and self-awareness, which is part of what you're doing here. So congratulations on working on that human need. So back to our list. We're gonna take our goals and we're gonna line them up based on this hierarchy. So first are goals related to physiological safety. So goals related to making enough money for you to feed yourself or taking care of your health in such a way that you're disease-free take the highest spots. Next are goals related to safety and security. This includes goals related to adequate housing, financial security, and health goals related not just to the absence of disease, to moving you into a wellness state. Goals related to social needs come next. Those are goals related to relationships or belonging, like improving your connections with your friend group or setting up a regular date night with your spouse or significant other. After those goals, you want to list goals related to your esteem. Things like finding a job where you feel supported, appreciated, and respected, or hitting that 95-pound overhead squat that I've been trying for 3 years. Finally, we come to goals that are related to self-actualization. These are goals related to self-improvement, self-awareness, or mastery. Those goals go at the end of the list. Using this type of hierarchy to rank order our goals ensures that we're spending adequate time and attention in addressing our basic needs. That strategy is particularly helpful if you are a young adult or you find yourself in a high transition period where it's important for you to get some of those basic life needs in order. If you feel like many of your goals are focused on the top of that hierarchy, you might want to use a different strategy. A strategy that has worked for me in the past has been to take a holistic look at all of my roles and identify what changes or improvements I wanted to make in each. There are several paper planners that walk you through this process, including the Moxie Life Planner and the Cultivate What Matters Power Sheets. But you don't need a specific planner to walk you through this system. In fact, last year I did a full review of all of my roles just on a scrap piece of paper. In order to use this strategy, you have to understand your specific roles. I like to look at my roles under 3 different domains. I have the work domain, and in work, I'm asked to take on different roles. I am a mentor, I'm a provider who sees patients, I'm a primary investigator that does scientific projects. So I have a series, like 3 or 4 primary roles that I play at work. In the home domain, I have several roles that I take on there. So I'm a wife, a mother, and a homekeeper. For some people, the third domain might be personal. Under personal, I have my business, so everything that I do as an entrepreneur, including doing YouTube videos, writing scripts, updating my website, making myself available for clients, as well as personal things like my health and fitness. So I have several roles under each of those domains. Last year, I identified about 10 or 12 different roles that I hold. In each of those roles, I did a general assessment of where I fell currently and where I wanted to be in the future. So on a scale from 0 to 10, in my role as a scientist, I felt like I was about an 8. And in order to get to a 10, I wanted to submit some professional manuscripts to be published in a series of scientific journals. In my role as a mom, I felt like I was about a 5. And in order to get to a 10, I felt like I wanted to have some dedicated time with my son. I wanted to increase the amount of family time that we had together and increase opportunities. The scientific way of putting it, I wanted to increase opportunities for reinforcement, but like a regular person would say, I just wanted us to have more fun together. Doing an assessment of where you are now in the specific roles and where you want to be, it gives you an idea of the difference between where you are now and where you want to be. If there's a really large disparity, you have a really large delta. If there's a small disparity, then there's only really like a few steps that you need to take to get to where you want to be. Now that you have your roles rank ordered in terms of how close or far you are from your ideal state, you can use that information to decide where you want to focus your efforts in the upcoming year. Some people may choose to focus on the role where there is the largest disparity between your current state and your ideal state. That's going to be a larger goal. Some people might want to focus on places where they're very close to their ideal state and work toward getting to that ideal state before moving on to the next goal. Studies related to self-efficacy support the importance of an early win when you're trying to develop a new behavior. So if you're trying to focus on obtaining your ideal state in a variety of roles, it might be helpful to start where you are the closest to your ideal state and working your way toward that ideal state so that you can have an early win, and then you can move on to a larger goal. As an alternative, some people look at the roles where their current state and their ideal state are the furthest away from each other. Since this is a somewhat larger gap, it's going to require a little bit more steps and potentially have some sub-goals to get you closer to where you want to be. A final way to use this role analysis is to identify 3 goals. Identifying a small goal, a moderate goal, and a large goal is another way that you can move forward into the new year. This strategy ensures that you're not overwhelming yourself by choosing several large goals, and you're not underperforming by choosing several small goals, but rather you're choosing a small goal where you can have a somewhat easy win, a moderate goal where you can get comfortable with goal setting and get experience achieving, and finally a larger goal which might encompass several sub-goals and might take a little bit longer to reach your ideal state. I've had mixed success using that strategy in years past, which is why next year I'm going to be using a value-based assessment to determine which goals I'm going to be focusing on for the new year. A value-based assessment starts similar to the needs-based assessment that we talked about at the beginning of this video. You want to go ahead and brain dump all of the things that you think you want to do over the next year. And then you're going to set that list aside and we're going to do some self-exploration. We're going to go on a hunt for our individual values. Choosing goals that are consistent with your values ensures that you are intrinsically motivated to achieve those goals. And an internal drive to accomplish things helps to sustain behavioral change when we lack motivation or when we fall back into our default way of doing things. On a very basic level, values are simply a series of beliefs or opinions that influence the way that you look at the world and live your life. They are unique to the individual and influence the way that we see things, respond to things, and ultimately the way that we choose what to focus our efforts on. Now, values are not stagnant, they change and evolve over time, so it's important from time to time to reevaluate your values, just like you would reevaluate your goals. There are several ways to characterize your values. As a psychologist, I tend to direct people toward surveys. I like the VIA Character Strength Survey. It was developed at the University of Pennsylvania. It is famously used in positive psychology. It's also used by the US Army in terms of identifying the values and character strengths of service members. It is a rather long survey, but there's also a brief version, and I'm going to leave links in the description down below where you can find this particular survey. But there are also other surveys that help you identify your value system, also within the psychology literature. You could also Google a values list. So James Clear on his website has a value list. There are also several other organizations that have a list of common core values. And you just read through them and kind of identify which ones resonate best with you. So reading from James Clear's list, for example, there is authenticity, achievement, adventure, authority, autonomy, balance, beauty, boldness, compassion. You can go through and circle the ones that stick out to you as something that is of central importance. One of the ways that I like to narrow down on my specific top 5 core values is I go through a list like this and I'm going to circle all of them that resonate with me. And then from that smaller list, I'm going to identify my top 10. And from that top 10, I'm going to identify my top 5. And then from that top 5, I'm going to rank order them in terms of importance. A final way to identify what your core values may be is to write down some of the things that you've identified as being valuable or important to you. Once you have that list, you can start asking yourself some questions. You can ask yourself things like, what gives me energy and what drains energy? Which of these values embody people that I admire? What are some of my favorite experiences, and what is the value that I got from those experiences? If those are my favorite, what does that tell me about things that are important to me and things that are not important to me? Those questions might help you add more values or delete values to your initial values list. Once you have gone through the exercise of identifying your core values, then you can take your goals list that we have put aside and we can rank them in terms of how consistent they are with that value. This is an exercise that I use to identify my specific goals for next year. So if you're interested in learning my top 5 core values as well as how that influenced my goal planning for next year, check out this video I made on my goals for 2023.